What would you like to talk about today, V?
Well, you wanted to talk about taboo.
Taboo. Well, we can do. Do you want to talk about taboo?
If you want.
Okay. Shall I start then?
Mm-hmm.
Well, to me, taboo is the idea that there's certain things that you can't really speak about in all contexts. So, like, you can pretty much talk about anything given the right context, I think. But what that means to me is that there's some kind of unwritten rule, or most of the time it's probably unwritten, maybe some of the time it's written, but most of the time it's an unwritten rule about what you're allowed to talk about, or I maybe shouldn't say allowed to talk about, but what would be appropriate to talk about, what would be inappropriate to talk about. And I don't even know if appropriate's the right word. It's how you feel about expressing yourself. Do you stop yourself short and only ever think something that you kind of wanted to say but didn't feel like you could say? And so, like, somehow we have these unwritten rules, and I guess people are holding back somewhat. Does that make any sense?
Sort of. I mean, the way I see it is, especially in an age where political correctness is all the rage, so the idea of taboo is probably stronger now than what it ever has been, I would think, in that respect. Like, you're not allowed to call certain groups of people certain things.
Yeah, it's taboo surrounding a single word.
Yeah.
It's not really a topic, but yeah, same sort of idea.
But it is a taboo, isn't it? It's a taboo subject.
Well, yeah. I don't know if it's taboo, but it's certainly the same kind of idea, isn't it?
Yeah, and it's definitely a cultural thing as well. I think there are some basic outlines throughout every culture, subjects that are classed as taboo, but I think it's also culturally based as well, that definitely.
Yes, but I think, as I was saying before, depends on the context, doesn't it? A lot of the time about what you can and can't discuss or talk about. So, like, we can have a discussion. The reason this topic came to mind was because I was thinking about back to the sort of idea that we're anonymous in this. We've anonymised ourselves, and that allowed us to have the freedom to talk about anything, or at least it felt like we had the freedom to talk about anything then. So that made me think, well, why didn't we have that freedom before? There must be some things which we're not supposed to talk about, and that sort of brought me onto taboo.
I don't think it's that there's things we're not supposed to talk about. I think ultimately what it boils down to on an open platform like YouTube is maybe having people comment on your video, maybe in a negative way about stuff that they disagree with. I think that's definitely what it boils down to on, YouTube and things like that. You don't want to put yourself in the firing line.
Well, yeah, it's not just YouTube though. I guess
No,
you
it's
just
not,
said
but
something
that's an
out
example
loud.
because that's what this is on. So,
Yeah, if you said something out loud,
that someone else didn't agree with,
Yeah.
you stand the chance of getting some quite nasty, feedback from that.
Is it just politics then, essentially?
I mean, we could still get nasty feedback, but there's kind of a barrier because we've made ourselves, unknown on the face of things. So it kind of is a protective shield, I suppose. And it's funny, I have noticed on the internet, on many different sort of public platforms, that the anonymity and the fact you're not face to face with people seems to give people more of a sense of rightness about saying what they really think as well.
Yeah. Well, there's trolls, aren't there, as well?
I'm not just meaning trolls, I'm meaning everyone is definitely got more of a loose tongue when they're not face to face with someone.
Yeah.
Yeah. And everyone becomes a lot more opinionated on there if you read some of the stuff that's on there.
But is that because
Twitter's probably the worst one, actually, I think. But Instagram, YouTube, Facebook, all of them, people seem to think that they have more of a right, somehow.
Yep.
To be, opinionated. Not necessarily nasty, but say more than what they'd normally say on a kind of face-to-face basis.
Yeah, because obviously if you said something too bad on a face-to-face basis, you get a slap.
You don't see so much of that on Facebook, but I guess it's because the people that you're, talking to, you know them anyway. So it's slightly less of it, I think.
Yeah.
Although I have seen a bit.
Yeah.
But things like Twitter, I think it's a disgrace at times. The things that people come out with. It's just nasty.
Yeah.
But...
So is the idea of taboo that you are anticipating a reaction and that you don't want to receive a negative reaction?
Well, in the case of, sort of social media, definitely. Yeah, I think so.
But in the case not of social media...
What is a taboo?
Well, that's what I'm thinking. Maybe that is how it works. You don't want to... You perceive that you're going to receive some sort of negative reaction, so you don't say it.
Well, there's obviously some things that are for, like some racial slurs or something that you just should not say. It depends, the size of a taboo depends on the amount of people that find it offensive, I suppose.
Or perhaps the amount of people who believe that they can't say it. Maybe it's not necessarily offensive, but just people think that it's not appropriate.
Yeah.
Yeah.
I think there's certain words in every language that people find inappropriate, and it's a general consensus. It's not one or two people. I think that's what makes it a taboo, maybe.
Well, you seem to be thinking about words, and I seem to be thinking about subjects.
So what do you mean by subjects, then? Give some examples.
Well, the most obvious example is sex, but that's not the only example. That's just the most obvious one. There's loads, really. Politics, spirituality, how to bring up your kids. Say that kind of stuff to a parent, and you're going to put people's
ackles up.
Yeah, and it's all about how you say it as well, I think. But
definitely,
still, you kind of avoid the subject because,
well, most people.
It's easier to avoid the subject than to think of an eloquent way of saying it that isn't going to come across so badly. But then again, so
it is all about words then?
Oh yeah. Well, do you mean like a taboo not in terms of words, but in terms of, I don't know, things you're not supposed to do? I mean, that's not really a taboo. But it's sort of similar. I don't think the exact word matters. I'm sort of seeing beyond the word now. It's just a general social condition, I guess.
It's definitely a cultural thing.
Yeah. And there's various different rules and whatnots that don't actually, when you think about it, mean that much. They're not going to hurt. It's not going to hurt anyone to talk about something. It's not going to hurt anyone to be naked. It's not going to hurt anyone lots of ways. I mean, maybe there are things that would actually, hurt people, but, that's not really the same thing. So I don't know, what are these expectations? I don't know what they are. And they probably change as time goes by, don't they? Like, you can expose more skin now.
I mean, back in the sort of day of Queen Victoria, it was taboo for a woman to expose an ankle. Do you know what I mean? She could expose as much boob as she wanted, but if she exposed an ankle, that was offensive. They even used to cover the legs on furniture, which I find bizarre. So, taboo and the spectrum of taboo definitely changes over time.
Yeah.
So...
I mean, is it just a set of arbitrary rules that you obey to fit in, just so you can have a culture?
I think so, yeah.
So therefore, by breaking taboos, are we challenging culture?